سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Yes, last time spoke. Verse number 36 of Surah Taha. Is that given precise?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى ولقد مننا عليك مرة أخرى إذ أوحينا إلى أمك ما يوحى أن اقذفيه في التابوت فقذفيه في اليم فليلقه اليم بالساحل يأخذه عدو لي وعدو له وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني.
إذ تمشي أختك فتقول هل أدلكم على من يكفله فرجعناك إلى أمك كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن وقتلت نفسا فنجيناك من الغم وفتناك فتونا فلبثت سنين في أهل مدين ثم جئت على قدري يا موسى واصطنعتك لنفسي اذهب أنت وأخوك فآتي بآياتي. Sorry?
Last mistake. You see the back as a fact.
اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا في ذكري اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقولا له قولا لينا لعله يتذكر أو يخشى. قالا ربنا إننا نخاف أن يفرط علينا أو أن يطغى. قال لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى.
أحمد right? محمد. إن شاء الله نبدأ من 36 again.
قال قد أوتيت سؤالك يا موسى. سؤلك يا موسى ولقد مننا عليك مرة أخرى إذ أوحينا إلى أمك ما يوحى أن أقذفيه في التابوت فاقذفيه في اليم فليلقه اليم بالساحل يأخذه عدوا لي وعدو له وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني.
With the sister side. Yep.
تمشي
إذ تمشي. Everyone is fasting today.
إذ تمشي
Yeah.
أختك
أختك
فتقول هل أدلكم على من يكفلوه فرجعناك إلى أمك كتقر عينها ولا يحزن وقتلت نفسا فنجيناك من الغم وفتناك فتونا فلبثت سنين في أهل مدينة ثم جئت على قدر يا موسى واصطنعتك بنفسي اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا بذكري اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقول له قولا لينا لعله يتذكر أو يخشى قال ربنا إننا نخاف أن يفرط علينا أو أن يطغى قال لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى.
Very good, mashallah. Other reciters.
قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى ولقد مننا عليك مرة أخرى إذ أوحينا إلى أمك ما يوحى أن اقذفيه في التابوت فاقذفيه في اليم فليلقه اليم بالساحل يأخذه عدو لي وعدو له وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني إذ تمشي أختك فتقول هل أدلكم على من يكفله فرجعناك إلى أمك كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن وقتلت نفسا فنجيناك من الغم وفتناك فتونا فلبثت سنين في أهل مدين ثم جئت على قدري يا موسى.
Well done. Salma, right? Good, mashallah. Other reciters.
واصطنعتك لنفسي اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا في ذكري اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى وقولا له قولا لينا لعله يتذكر أو يخشى قال ربنا إننا نخاف أن يفرط علينا
أوحينا
إلى أمك ما يوحى
أمين أن يقضي فيه
أن اقذفيه في التابوت فاقذفيه في اليم
فليلقه اليم
بالساحل فيأخذه عدو لي وعدو له وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني.
Well done. Other readers?
No.
If someone is too shy?
Busy drawing.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Just a quick translation. قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى. God said, Musa, your requests actually are granted. You know, last week we've seen 8 requests from Musa alayhi salam that he asked Allah. Let's count them. He said, you know, expand my expand my heart. That's number 1. Ease my task for me. 2. Untie my tongue. 3. Make them and give them so that they get to understand my words. 4. Give me a helper from my family. 5. Harun, choosing Harun more particularly. 6. Ushdud bihi azri, make him a source of support. So not just a counselor, but also a source of support. 7. Give him a share of my task. These are 8 requests. After that, Allah says, وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى. Indeed, we showed you favor even before you even asked for anything. Then Allah actually gives Musa alayhi salam 8, reminds Musa of 8 other things that he was given without even asking for them. إِذْ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّكَ مَا يُوحَىٰ. When we inspired your mother, saying, put your child into the chest, then place him in the river. Let the river push him on to its bank, and he will be taken by an enemy of mine and an enemy of his. I showered you with my love and planned that you should be reared under my watchful eye. Your sister went out saying, I will tell you someone who will nurse him. Then we returned you to your mother so that she could rejoice and not grieve. Later you killed a man, but we saved you from distress and tried you with other tests. You stayed among the people of Midian for years, and you came here as I ordained. But you can also translate this, and you came here on time, on a specific time, on a designated time. And I have fashioned you for me. I fashioned you in this way for me. Go, you and your brother, with my signs, and make sure that you remember me. This can also be translated as, and never give up on my remembrance, always. Go, both of you, to Fir'aun, but he has exceeded all limits. But make sure that you speak to him gently, so that he may take heed or show respect. They said, Lord, we fear that he will do us great harm or exceed all bounds. He said, do not be afraid. I am with you both, hearing and seeing everything. Another very powerful passage. As normal, we begin by asking everyone to pick a word or a phrase or a verse that really captures their attention, and then we open the discussion, asking the people to share why did they pick this specific word or expression or phrase. may begin with Islam.
وقتلت نفسا فنجيناك
This whole sentence.
من until like من الغم وفتنك فتونا.
Oh, see this whole probably. Okay, قتلت نفسا فنجيناك من الغم. Thank you. أحمد.
واصطنعتك لنفسي.
واصطنعتك لنفسي. محمد.
اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا في ذكرى.
A specific word or the whole verse?
ولا تنيا في الذكرى.
ولا تنيا في ذكري. Ani?
Whatever the translation for speak to him gently is.
Okay. قول له قولا لينا. سلمى.
Mine's also واصطنعتك لنفسي.
واصطنعتك لنفسي. Was it Zainab or Zainab? Zainab? Zainab, sorry. The same as Ali. That is قولا لينا. And Maryam. The whole sentence? Okay. Allah. Who else has recited? Is that everyone? Okay. From my side, I go. It's a lot, honestly. Of course, Pastanat Nafsi comes up as a very prominent one, but I also have in mind وفتناك فتونا. But honestly, actually, every single phrase in this passage is worthy of our attention. Yeah, Islam. Any other choices? Have I missed anyone? Okay. The first one, وقتلت نفسا. Islam. What did you put this one?
I thought killing a man was quite serious. So then, but then Allah even saved Musa from this sort of punishment. I thought it's a very serious crime, but it's also like, because we also know that some prophets, they abandoned their people, and that one was, that was very, at least from what I've read, that one, it was as if it was taken a lot more seriously. But then here, Allah is like emphasizing more of His mercy.
Okay. That's a very important point here, Muhammad. Islam. Could you see that? Of course, I'm sure you know that there is a context to this.
Yeah.
Musa did not kill this man intentionally. It was unintentionally. Surah Al-Qasas tells us this with more details. Just to give some context, it says he entered the city unnoticed by its people, and found two men fighting, one from his own people, the other an enemy. The one from his own people, that is from the Banu Israel, the one from his own people cried out to him for help against the enemy. Musa struck him with his fist and killed him. So it was wakaza, the verb, the Quran uses the verb wakaza is to push someone. Literally, to push someone in a way, that you wouldn't expect to cause death. Right? But it doesn't happen. But he didn't mean it. He was just trying to push him away, to keep him away from. But Musa himself, after that, he said, this must be Satan's word. Clearly, he is a misleading enemy. He said, Lord, I have wronged myself. Forgive me. So he forgave him. He is truly the most forgiving, the most merciful. He said, my Lord, that is Musa, my Lord, because of the blessings you've bestowed upon me, I shall never support those who do evil. So we understand from this that it was not intentional. That's number one. Number two, the Quran. First of all, Banu Israel, they were, enslaved in Egypt. They have had a really difficult time. And yes, it's a serious thing. That's why Musa alayhi salam had a state of gham, a state of very deep distress, deep anxiety as well. So Allah is saying, we cast this into your heart that it wasn't intentional, you didn't mean it. So you had some sort of a relief from our side. It was not intentional as such. But of course, I do take your point. It's a strong thing, a very big thing. Actually, that Musa kept it in mind after more than 10 years. When Allah asked him to go back to Egypt, he said, I still remember that I've killed one of them. So he did take it as a very serious thing. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ustad.
I think the story of Musa, from his early childhood to sort of the time that he got sent the message, it's just, it's like I've put you on this path for a reason, for sort of to do my. So I have like a plan for you, sort of thing, that I'll put you on this path for. That just seems very clear from this passage where his mum put him in the chest and left him completely in the river, to him seeing Pharaoh, his enemy to be in the future, being in the palace and stuff like that, and then interaction with Bani Israel, and then going to Madian, probably staying there for a bit of time, gaining some skills and wisdom and stuff like that, and then coming back sort of at a later age, developed age, to finally fulfill sort of the plan that God had for him, sort of from an early, from all behind the scenes. So that seems quite clear to me.
Absolutely. And this comes, we said Musa alayhi salam asked 8 requests. He had 8 requests in the previous passage. Allah is telling him, yes, you have been granted those 8 requests, but guess what? We provided actually with other 8 requests, 8 blessings without you asking. Mainly because I have made you for me, I have fashioned you for me, I have designed you for me in this way. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, Mohammed. You said, وَلَا تَنِيَا فِي ذِكْرِي.
Sheikh, tell me what's the translation of وَلَا تَنِيَا?
Taniya is like, don't never give up on my dhikr, on my remembrance. Keep making mention of me so that, I support you.
Yeah, and so, based on that, I know we have...
So, Taniya comes from the verb wana. Wana is to really be tired and to become so weak. So Allah is saying, never be tired of my remembrance. Never give up on my remembering me.
So I think this one I can sort of relate it to, in a way, to my own self. So a lot of times, one hardship after another, I always always have to keep remembering that, say inshallah, say you'll get this, say. So this is why the specific part of ayah really
Relates to
resonates
it.
with me.
So it lists your own personal experience. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think probably in passing, we've mentioned this. Dhikr is probably the third time where dhikr gets mentioned in the surah. Aqim salat al-dhikri. Practice prayer, perform the prayer, so that you may remember me. وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا. Again, Musa is making a request to expand his own remembrance of Allah, and even Allah is asking to him. And dhikr is a beautiful thing. Also, a very, very powerful thing. Very powerful thing. It's for a good reason that Allah is telling them to make remembrance of Allah as much as they can, because at times of fear, times of difficulties, dhikr is very powerful. And it's more powerful than you may imagine. Just reading the Quran is very powerful. Makes you very, very strong, able to face challenges very, very easily. So the Quran has this power. The Quran is the peak of dhikr. So just reading the Quran gives you that internal power that you can't imagine. So Allah is telling them, weapon number one in your fight against Fir'aun is to take dhikr as your ally. Absolutely, very powerful. And what you're saying makes perfect sense from our own personal experience. Would say much about that. Thank you. Mani?
Mine is speak to him gently, even to Pharaoh, the rest of all people. The command is to speak to them gently, and I think about myself and how I don't do that. Yeah.
So you're a harsh communicator.
Yeah, when I'm angry, just have to raise my voice.
Okay.
To be heard, and I'm just
Sure,
yeah.
sure, absolutely. I was right before I was going through a book that is called, if I'm not mistaken, it's called "Be Water, My Friend." Be water, as in terms of softness, being soft, and the power of being soft. And the book goes through, making a really strong argument that soft people, soft skills are very powerful. And in Arabic tradition, we have something from the pre-Islamic culture. They would say, الصلب يكسر واللجين لا يكسر. If you have something that is as solid as rock, you can break a rock. But how would you break water? So when something is linear, you can't break it. And it's the book, literally, this is a summary of the book. Water is a great example of this. Water has the capacity to penetrate and expand without being confrontational. And what is absolutely you see this verse lies in the midst of a couple of verses that discuss how tyrannical Fir'aun is. And look at the previous verse, it's saying, اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go to Fir'aun because he exceeded all the limits, but make sure you speak gently. But you just said he's unbelievably tyrannical. Right? That is the power of communication, gentle communication, absolutely. And when we say gentle communication, we mean so many things. We mean speaking slowly. We mean speaking quietly, not shouting. We mean active listening. When someone is talking, I listen. I'm not just giving a deaf ear. All this is qawl al-layna. So the lean is not just in words, but also in listening. And responding with gentleness, responding with easiness, choosing and picking your words, being articulate, all these all these connotations come with قولا لينا. لعله يتذكر أو يخشى. You know, he might remember, he might take heed, right? So the power of a قول لين, absolutely. Soft communication, soft skills. Yeah, and it's one of the hugely lacked skills today. قولا لينا. I don't know if Lynn is here. We had a conversation this morning. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this. She was asking me, what does the name Lynn mean? Why did you call me Lynn? I said, Lynn literally means being soft and being easy. She says that because I easily get you angry. I laughed so hard. Yeah. It's so soft. Yeah. واصطنعتك لنفسي. Who's that? I think this is that something? Yeah.
I just like the idea that Allah uses us as like vessels for His cause, the same way that He uses the prophets to undergo.
Sama, can you please raise your voice a little?
Sorry?
Can you please raise your voice a little? It doesn't have to be that loud.
I said I like the idea that Allah uses us as vessels for His cause, the same way that He uses the prophets to undergo certain tasks, and it's usually really well catered towards like their personality traits and things like that. So
As vessels for His cause. What a beautiful statement. Absolutely. Musa is being prepared and he doesn't know anything for years. And that he gets surprised when Allah tells him, you are chosen for this task. And he actually thinks, no, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. Allah is using, absolutely uses us as vessels. Subhanallah. Thank you for that. Another قولا لينا. Is that Zainab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have too much more significance to add to this, except for just exaggerating the contrast that I felt when I read it, where it was going on about Fir'aun and his Tughyan and his all that he's done, and even just jogging your own memory of like Fir'aun always being mentioned as like this tyrant, and then suddenly you have this ayah that says to speak to him.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I think it prompted a reaction from me even like when I was reading it, and then I sat there reflecting on that, and obviously how it applies to ourselves, as I already said.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not easy. It's not easy. We have a brother here, Mujtaba, who gave a khutbah yesterday at Bath Uni. I don't know if many of you were there. And Mujtaba is, when I think of someone who embodies this, I think Mujtaba is a great example. He speaks so softly, and that reflects on his character as well. I'm honestly proud of him. I hope I will have more people. I hope I'm like that. And that just leaves a good impact on people, and you that we surround ourselves with. You naturally make the other person a good communicator as well, because it expands. If I am shouting, you will naturally shout. That's how it goes. A good way of ending an argument or calming down someone. Can you please calm down? Even naturally calm down. It doesn't work.
No,
Okay.
so
Something I found very powerful and very impactful. If someone is shouting or speaking loudly, I'd say, in an argument, I'd say just if we can't speak when we are a little bit more calm, that's probably a more impactful way. And I guess, of course, Musa alayhi salam has taken this piece of advice very to the letter. If you look at, and as we said, Musa alayhi salam is the most mentioned prophet in the entire Quran, more than 25 times is mentioned by me. In Surah النازعات اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go to Fir'aun, he exceeded all the limits. فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى. It's a very gentle way of addressing. Would you be interested in being purified? وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى. You know how the conversation goes in Surah Al-Naz'at is literally an embodiment of this lean. And even more than that, I honestly think Fir'aun has been impacted by Musa. Because of that leniency. If you look at the conversation in Surah Al-Shu'ara, when Musa killed the Egyptian, he came back after 10 years, even more than our scholars would say, he actually stayed for more than 10 years in Madian. When he came back to Fir'aun, asking for Banu Israel to leave Egypt and go with him, how does Fir'aun respond? Alam nurabbika fina walida. Didn't we bring you up? Didn't we look after you? وَلَبِثْتَ فِينَا مِنْ عُمُرِكَ سِنِينَ. You stayed with us for years and years. I can never imagine Fir'aun shouting, saying those words. Really difficult. He must have been so calm. As if you are blaming someone. And when you blame someone, you have some sort of expectation. I've spent time with you, I stayed with you, I've given you this, I've given you that. Don't I owe you something? Right? And he stayed with him for years. What did Fir'aun get? This Fir'aun who was introduced in the Quran as a Taghiya, he's actually responded in a gentle way. He is not shouting, he is not threatening. He's enjoying a good conversation with Musa. He's trying to convince Musa that, of another cause. And he starts to shout when he gets defeated, in terms of the argument. And he actually goes with Musa in a good conversation. Surah Al-Shu'ara literally records this conversation. That he gets to ask, وَمَا رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Again, can you imagine Fir'aun being angry, asking those questions now? Because of Moses' approach. So it works, it does work. It does work with the most, corrupt of all people. And then the conversation goes. Fir'aun as a Taghiya, you wouldn't give a space for someone to express themselves, let alone, presenting a case. A case where I'm making an argument, this is why Allah is the origin of this world and this and that. An entire page on that conversation. In today's world, despotic rulers didn't allow you to speak. Right? With Fir'aun, again, someone who claims to be God, he's actually enjoying a conversation with Musa in front of everyone. That means a lot. That means Moses' approach worked. He's taken on Allah's advice. Being in the mind of was it Harun al-Rashid, when he was, reprimanded by was rebuked by one of the people. Was it a scholar? I don't know, I can't remember. And he was talking, he's the Khalifa al-Muslimin, right? The head of the Muslim community, and he comes to him and he shouts, he's given a piece of advice, yes, but in that commanding way. Why don't you do this? Why do you do that? Harun said, I hope I remember correctly, either Harun or Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, he said, Isma, listen to me. إن الله قد بعث من هو خير منك إلى من هو شر مني. Allah had sent someone who was better than you, that is Musa alayhi salam, to someone who was way more corrupt than me, that is Fir'aun. ولكن قال له قول لينا. And yet he said to him, speak to him gently. So be careful to talk to me in this way. I haven't done what Fir'aun has done. And I like that understanding. And again, it speaks of the power of communication. So, communication, absolutely. قولا لينا. So, again, Musa alayhi salam is taken on this piece of advice very beautifully. Read Surah Al-Naz'at, you will see the glimpses of this. Read the impact of this on Fir'aun himself. in Surah Al-Shu'ara. Let's go through the conversation and see. I can see Fir'aun, I can imagine Fir'aun being somehow, what's the word? You know, not knowing what to do. Like someone I lived with them and they're so nice, they're so gentle. And he's been brought up and within my own palace. And I can see how, you know, how soft he is and how good he is. And he's speaking to me in this way. I can imagine being frustrated how to respond. I'm not accustomed to this. I'm not accustomed to being challenged. Okay. So, you know, the story begins in Surah Al-Shu'ara by him saying, debating this with Allah, I'm not qualified, this is not the right time or something. So he goes to Fir'aun and says, let the children of Israel leave with us. Fir'aun said, did we not bring you up as a child among us? Did you not stay with us for many years? And then you committed that crime of yours. You were so ungrateful. As in, Fir'aun could have followed him up and could have captured him, but he didn't. Musa said, I was misguided. As in, min al-dali means like I didn't mean it. I fled. The conversation goes. And wallahi, I can imagine Musa alayhi salam is actually taking the initiative to even raise the level of the conversation. Look at this. Musa is saying, I didn't mean it. I fled from you as I was afraid of you. Later my Lord gave me wisdom and made me one of his messengers. And then Musa says, وَتِلْكَ نِعْمَةٌ تَمُنُّهَا عَلَيَّ أَنْ عَبَدْتَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Is this really a blessing that you think you've done me good? Who is raising the conversation? Musa. And I'm here looking at the impact of Musa's character on Fir'aun. That Fir'aun gets to say, Umar Rabbil Alameen, okay, tell me, what is this? What is this Lord of the world? Musa responds by saying, He is the Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them, if you would only have faith. قال لمن حوله لا تستمعون. Fir'aun said to the people who were there, do you hear what he says? Musa goes, ربكم ورب آبائكم الأولين. The conversation goes. Okay. Musa is taking the initiative, raising the level. And again, Fir'aun comes across as someone who's trying to understand. Very unbelievable. And I can only understand this as an impact of Moses' character on him. As someone who takes on the piece of advice that has stayed with him for years. This is not the result of one day. Don't take this as one encounter and that was it. Fir'aun is reflecting years and years of engaging with Musa. Otherwise, very simple. I mean, why should I entertain this conversation to begin with? I could have just put you in prison and that's it. So again, just link the surahs together. قول الليين موسى هل لك إلى أن تزكى. Then this reflects on Fir'aun's own engagement. These were the Surah. Who said فرجعناك إلى أمك? Yes, Gamal.
Actually, I have 3 reasons why I like this part.
Sure.
First of all, because like so many people like to say Islam doesn't cater to women, Islam doesn't care about women, all of that. But here in this part of the ayah, Allah says that He brought back Musa just to calm down his mother's heart. So I feel like that's a clear sign that Islam actually does care about women, to the point where it's like Allah even cares about like their emotions. That makes sense.
That is definitely beautiful. Absolutely. Please go on.
Yeah, that's my first point.
I'm happy to reflect on this, but if you want to share the other points, I'm happy to listen as well. Absolutely, that's a beautiful statement. We men might not even recognize this it does take someone who lives, who goes through this experience. You know, the heaviness of emotions and how these, you know, I think Surah Al-Qasas even reflects this even more. وأصبح فؤاد أم موسى فارغا, when Moses' mother was empty. Can you imagine? As if the Quran is saying she wakes up in the morning and her heart, to find her heart empty. Empty out of fear, empty out of scaredness. Right? And then the Quran, when the Quran uses the word kay, it means I have done this because of that. So for the Quran to say كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا, so we brought him back to you. First of all, Musa could have been brought up in Fir'aun's palace. The whole nursing discussion is just because of Moses' mother. Allah could have looked after Musa without getting his mother involved at all. Couldn't he? This is something that's made up just because of to cater for Musa's mother emotions. كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا. So not just that she doesn't become upset or grieve, but actually she gets to become happy. And this is something I think that you know, women and emotions is a very central thing. I mean, and I don't mean this in a negative way. First of all, the Quran does not really differentiate. For the Quran, the heart is the organ of understanding, of logic, of reasoning, as well as emotions. So we should not understand emotions in opposition to logical thinking. Like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French philosopher, have a very famous statement where he would say, the heart has its own reasons. The heart has its own reasons. You know, sometimes just judge by your own instincts. I don't really feel I should be doing this. And I can't really provide any logical arguments. And it turns out to be a very logical position to take, isn't it? So we see this also with Maryam alayhi salam, in Surah Maryam. In the midst of the agonies of giving birth, childbirth, the Quran, Allah is really looking after this by saying, فَكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي وَقَرِّي عَيْنَ. She is waiting a scandal. She is waiting for a scandal that's going to happen within a couple of hours. And the Quran says, eat, drink, and be happy. How do we become happy with this? And you don't even have to speak, you don't even have to defend yourself. Even more than that, you know, in Surah Al-Ahzab, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of the wives of Prophet Muhammad, which is a subject we need to tackle at some point as a standalone thing. The Quran says, ترجي من تشاء منهن وتؤوي إليك من تشاء ومن ابتغيت ممن عزلت فلا جناح عليك ذلك أدنى أن تقر أعينهن ولا يحزن ويرضين بما آتيتهن كلهن. So Allah Ta'ala is telling the Prophet specific regulations so that his women, they end up becoming happy. And that they don't get upset and they don't get to have griefs and you know, issues and this and that. And the Quran uses the same expression so that they don't end up, you know, with any sort of negative feelings. If you trace this across the Quran, I think it's a very clear thing. The Quran and women's hearts. As a positive thing, not as a. If Allah tells you something, it means it's a positive and an important thing. But thank you for that point. Did you say you have two other points? Yeah.
The other one are personal, so like whenever I'm feeling like sad or overwhelmed or something, this ayah really does help because I mean she gave away her newborn and like she hasn't seen it for so long and Allah cares so much that He brought him back just so she isn't sad. So like personally I reflect upon that as in like surely Allah will send something to me that will make me feel better and will make me be able to go through what I'm dealing with.
Absolutely. Allah attending to our own personal experiences. Absolutely.
And the last
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, okay, like this is too much. Like this is too much. But again, this ayah really like shows me that the extent that mothers care by especially the word so like their hearts are like essentially mourning. So like the extent of the worry is so much greater than I could ever imagine. So like okay, maybe let's just like let me text her back and calm her down.
Absolutely.
Because she cares and
Absolutely.
it's all out of love at the end.
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, yeah. There is a balance in everything, and to everything. But I do hear what you say, absolutely. And thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing personal stuff. I mean, that definitely reflects on the relatability of the Quranic message, that we can relate to it, we feel it, we experience this up to this very day. Thank you. I think this was mine, wasn't it? Yeah. I chose وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. Fatana, you know, the common understanding of it is, you know, we've tested you. In the Quran, Allah uses with Musa specific contracts, like one of which is وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. فَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. We've tested you in extremely. And linguistically, the Arabs use the verb fatana to save something. That's first of all. This is the first understanding: is we've tested you. Fatana is to test, right? But it is to test with an aim. With the aim of purifying something. It's not just to test and that's it. Mainly because the Arabs use the verb fatana as well with, you know, when you come to, al-dhahab wal-fidda, gold and silver, you know, they are not, they have to go through specific processes and
You smell.
exactly, smelt them. So they have to go through this sort of insahar. You use fire actually for this to just save the precious metals from the unprecious ones. They have to go through fire. The Arabs call this process futun. فَتَنْتُ الذَّهَبَ مِنَ الْفِضَّةِ. Then I saved the silver from I saved the gold from the silver. So you use the verb fatana. So we've saved you, as in we've tested you. You may translate this as tested, but also as saved. We've saved you from numerous places. And the Quran is reminding Musa alayhi salam of these facts. Look at this. Fir'aun had threatened Banu Israel to literally kill every newly born baby, sons. Because he was told that, you know, they would have a guy who would destroy your kingdom and this and that. He said, okay, for that, I'm not going to let them actually bring this kid up. I'm going to kill every single newly born baby son. Right? And then we are told, you know, some people intervened, most likely his own wife. Said, okay, let's do it other year. You kill those sons in 1 year, and then you leave them for 1 year. Musa gets born in the year in which year?
They get killed. They get killed.
They get killed. He doesn't get born in the year in which they don't kill. He actually gets born in the year in which he kills. He doesn't even, you know, it is not that he doesn't notice his birth. He takes him to bring him up. What is more wondrous than that? He takes the guy who's going to destroy his kingdom to bring him up. Allah says, I will take you through this to show you what I can do. And then after that, he gets to kill an Egyptian who is, think of a minority-majority, you know, dynamics. Banu Israel being enslaved. So just to slap someone or hit someone, you can be in prison for years. Musa is killing someone and just goes. Allah saves him from that. Staying for 10, probably some scholars would say actually reached 25 years in Madian. The Quran says he fulfilled his promise to the man of Madian, Shu'aib. But it doesn't say whether he left Madian right after he finished. So some scholars say he stayed actually for 25 years. So he comes back to Egypt, lost in the desert, the fire, the conversation we had last week, or the last 2 weeks. He comes to Egypt, encounters Fir'aun, goes through all this, gets saved from the river. You see that his life is full of examinations. And examinations in unbelievable ways. Think of this. In our own lives, up to this very moment, if I'm asking everyone, take a note of one single event in your life that you think this is one of the peaks and the highlights of my life. When I look back, I find this moment, I am not the same person after this moment. I'm pretty sure every one of us has that moment. Maybe it's not the peak of your life in its entirety, but at least for the moment, you think by this turning point, I was not the same person anymore. Or maybe I became even better, I became worse, and there is this moment in our lives. If you are posing this very same question to Musa alayhi salam, he has a lot to say. Would he talk about like his own situation being in the river, being brought up in Pharaoh's place, killing that Egyptian, just killing a person is hefty enough. Right? Fleeing, meeting those two ladies by the well, helping them, get water in the animals, getting married, coming back. He has a lot to tell. He has a lot of moments. These are not easy moments. These are moments of testing.
Meeting them,
absolutely. But this will come later. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make here is every one of us will have a moment. This moment, I'm not talking about a moment of happiness. I'm talking about a moment of seriousness. I have to make a decision. I have to, I'm being, it's one of those moments. You don't really know what is happening. You don't really know what is happening. I have this in my life, and I'm sure everyone has. If Musa is being asked, he has a lot to say. To me, this just reflects what you've gone through a lot. And for the Quran to use the verb fatana, you have been absolutely purified. You have been smelted, absolutely. For you to reach this moment, so that you be sent to Fir'aun. So I find the Quranic expression of fatana is just very powerful. And I don't want to take up the conversation, but I'm happy to listen. Which ones you haven't said anything?
I can get over Qawl Layyinan. I think Qawl Layyinan it just embodies the whole idea of Islam. It captures, and I think underneath Qawl Layyinan it captures what you say, including the logic behind what you say, and it captures how you say it.
Absolutely.
So both things. So I think it's
wonderful way of coming at it. It's not just how you say it, but what you have to say. Is it logical? Is it sensical? Also, why do you say it? In his first encounter with Fir'aun, هل لك إلى أن تزكى? I'm here for you. Why am I talking to you? I am concerned about you. So,
and it sets the standards as well. So if this is how you speak to Fir'aun, who is an extremely tyrannical person,
absolutely.
Then how would you speak to a normal person? Or how would you speak to your mother? Even further.
A lot of times we get really nasty. Yeah.
No one has an excuse.
Absolutely.
No matter how bad a person is.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I think Harun Rashid had a point. I'm not that bad, you're not that good.
Yeah, true.
I'm not Fir'aun and you're not Musa. It's calm down.
And it links to other ayat in the Quran like وَإِن كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ.
Absolutely.
It's all about being.
Now, Prophet Muhammad is being told, if you were harsh, nobody would have listened to you. You just driving away from me. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just how you say, what you say, why you say it. Absolutely, subhanAllah. Hugely lacking. Hugely lacking. Al-Ghazali, in Ihya Ulumuddin, he says, if you really want to know how horrible anger is, look at yourself in the mirror when you're angry. You will hate yourself. So you don't look at yourself. You don't know how you look. I do not talk about Tina. She does tell me like when I get angry, I get scared. I don't get angry. I'm not. I don't. So ask. It's something that we live, but we don't reflect on. How do we look like when we get angry? And there's something that Prophet told us as well. When he said, إنما الغضب جمرة من الشيطان, that anger is from the shaitan. ألا تنظرون إلى حمرة وجه الرجل. Don't you look at the redness of the person's face, وانتفاخ أوداجه, and how one's veins really get swollen. That's what anger does to us. So that's a very serious thing. So if you look at yourself in the mirror and you see how horrible this is, you just say, I don't want to look like that. How? Do you have any apologies? Yes, ma'am.
I think all of what husband said is emphasized by the sentence after Allah Allah could have, Allah knew what was going to happen, He knows everything. So He could have said, he's not going to listen, so just letting him, or something along those lines, but it's to further emphasize to Musa, you have to be nice to everyone, you have to be gentle with everyone.
That is so insightful. That is so insightful.
He knows, so He could have told him.
That is so insightful. So Allah knows what Fir'aun's response will be. Right? Allah knows he's not going to listen. He's not going to respond positively. He's actually going to chase you out of Egypt. Right? And yet he still says, قُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Even though he knows. Like he's teaching us how to go about things. That is so insightful. I don't want to confuse you, but there is the mainstream understanding of this, yes. Allah knows things before they happen. And even though He's teaching Musa the most effective way just for the people to listen and learn, how should we react on that. There is a tiny minority interpretation though. I feel that out of honesty I have to share this. It says, Allah knows things after they happen, not before they happen. This interpretation is taken up by like 1% of Muslim scholars. The vast majority would believe otherwise. But this does not negate, by the way, the belief in Qada wal Qadar. So they say, Allah is telling Musa, and Allah, in His knowledge, there are two tracks for Fir'aun. A track if he listens, and a track if he doesn't listen. If he doesn't listen, it's hell. If he listens, it's heaven. Right? I do realize this is a little bit of a minority interpretation of al-qada wal-qadar, but it does exist. So they would say Allah has given Fir'aun the choice, and there's a real chance here. If he chooses this, the most effective way to reach Fir'aun's heart is to become gentle, to approach him gently. Chooses this, the left side in hell, the right side, to me, is heaven. I hope this didn't confuse you. Great, Islam.
I've heard people say that you could like complain to Allah. Like if Quran was talked to harshly, then you would be able to say, you know, I wasn't spoken to in a nice way, so obviously I would reject.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean that's what Al-Ghazali as well. He has a really important book called Faisal al-Tafriq between Islam and Zandaq. Clear differentiation between what makes someone a Muslim and what makes someone a disbeliever. He talks about the differentiation. You know, when someone gets communicated the message of Islam, the method of communication matters. When Islam was communicated to me, was it communicated in a gentle way or in a harsh way? The day of judgment, this will matter with Allah. So definitely. How did you have anything to share?
One plenty. The passage is full, but
It is indeed.
I'll come back to I think the main verse for me, which is ولا تنيا في دينك.
No.
So I can match it with. But I think the point that I had was the difference between ولتصنع على عيني واصطنعتك لنفسي almost feels like speaking to what you said earlier about the futuna, Allah says before He starts listing out all the ways in which you kind of had factors against you, where you were thrown and you were I brought you back to your mother and so on and so forth. Allah keeps it ambiguous, لِتُصْنَعَ عَلَى عَيْنِي, as in to be shaped by these factors around you. However, later after it finishes, ثُمَّ جِئْتَ عَلَى قَدْرٍ يَا مُوسَى وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي, almost reminding him that I brought down those factors to you that formed you, if that makes sense.
It does.
It's almost a stage.
So are you trying to highlight the divine hand in all this?
Yes, as in a reminder after to say that even like Fir'aun, even the fact that you were in the water and so on and so forth, those were not just the factors that made you, but they were factors that I provided.
Absolutely. That's actually what faith does to us. How faith helps us overcome fear. The concept of fear is mentioned a couple of times in this passage and the previous passage, and the next one. You know, Musa would say, as we already recited, Musa would say, إِنَّا نَخَافُ, both of them are reiterating the same thing. نَخَافُ أَنْ يَفْرُطَ عَلَيْنَا أَوْ أَنْ يَطْغَى. You know, actually, وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي, I've made you for me. اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا في ذكري اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقولا له قولا لينا لا نتذكر عليه قال ربنا إننا نخاف أن يفرط علينا أو أن even after all those requests, even after Allah reminds Musa of all this support, he says we're still afraid أن يفرط علينا أو أن لا تخاف إنني معكم أسمع وأرى. How do we overcome this? How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps Prophet Musa in a very unique way, and it should do to us better. That is, giving him a perspective. What does a perspective mean? What does, you know, we always say when someone gets asked, why do you study philosophy? Say, yeah, because they want to have a perspective.
A vision of life.
A vision of life. Absolutely. To just understand things in the bigger picture. To know what the place of this is, what the place of that is, for me not to get really, irritated by small stuff. To know this is happening for a reason, this is leading to this is leading to that. That's what faith does to us. What happens if we can have that perspective? You literally get frustrated and irritated by the most simple things. You know, why did you shout at me? Why did you do this? But if I really understood that this is the nature of people, humans will always be humans. Will always be, you know, deviate. Will always, you know, exceed the limits. Well. That's it. Oh, that's how a person chooses how to behave. That's their problem, not my problem. I am being asked because I have a perspective, not to react in the very same way. So what faith does to us, it gives us a perspective. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving Musa is just this perspective. He's telling him, don't look at this encounter in isolation. I've been preparing for a long time, more than 40 years. I'm doing this, I've done that. You are even asking for more. You're asking for a counselor. You're asking for a helper. You're asking for a minister. That is Harun. 3 functions embodied in one person. Plus, you're asking for more internal stuff. Shrah sadri, wassir amri, blah blah blah. All this, right? Allah is telling you, I've given you those. Okay, I'm even giving you more. I'm reminding you even more stuff to give you a perspective, to tell you that this was not happening for no reason. I'm preparing you for this moment. Don't lose this perspective. And this is literally what faith does to us. You know, whenever you are afflicted by a problem, what happens to our minds? You become literally problem focused, you know, and enslaved to the moment. How do you get out of this? You know, how, you know, not actually how do I get out of this? How big is this? There is no way out of this. And then after a good deal of time, you start to realize this is not the way out. If I keep thinking about the problem in and of itself, there is no way out. The way out is the solution. I need to think about the solution. What faith does to us, it gives us solutions. Allah is telling Musa, you know, use gentle speeches to reach Fir'aun's heart. This is a way out. Be gentle to him. Be logical with him. Go to the most basic factors. The things that he can't claim. He can't claim that he created the heavens. He can't claim that he created this. He may claim authority. He can't claim creativity. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving Musa, is taking Musa out of this problem-focused mindset. To put him in the mode of, you know, solution-focused mindset. I want you to focus on the assets that you have. You have internal assets, a heart that is expanded, a vision that I'm giving you right now, telling you that you, in all this I was with you, you were not alone. And I'm counting several factors that were happening not at a single time. These were happening over years and for decades, 4 decades or something. Do you think this was happening for no reason? It wasn't. The same thing what had happened to Prophet Muhammad when he had this sort of disconnection, the disconnection of revelation. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. You haven't been deserted. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. You know, you had some good moments in the past when we encountered an encounter with Jibreel alayhi salam. But what is to come of the Quran is a lot more than what you receive. You only received a couple of verses. But what awaits you is an entire Quran. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Can't you remember? أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Can't you remember that you were an orphan and he looked after you? وَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Looking for answers. Provided you with this. عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Dependent on other people. We've made you independent. Being a businessman, being a trader, being a, you know, shepherd. So that in return you have to do the same to other people. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. In as much as we looked after you when you were an orphan, look after the orphans. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. At a certain time you were looking for answers. The Prophet would spend years and years in Ghar Hira looking for answers. Right? He says, if someone comes to you with questions, we normally think of a sa'il as in terms of money. It's not necessarily in terms of money. Actually, the context is saying in terms of someone who is misguided, looking for guidance. If someone comes to you with questions, be patient with them. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Don't get angry. Take your time. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. You know, the blessings that you have shared them as much as you can. It is not the hadith as in talk about them, but as in activate them, live by them, share them with others. Hadith takes someone else, as in update those blessings by sharing them with others. Literally, حدث is to update, you know. we literally use it today. I updated this form. حدثته. You may understand, it applies here. حدثه is not to talk, it's not about talking. It is about updating. Update the blessing, you know, when you start to count the blessings. You know, see, look at this. وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى. Allah is telling Musa, you know what? We have showed favor to you one more time. And then the Quran counts 8 times. So 8 times when Musa had 8 requests. Allah said, your requests have been answered. But remember, we have already given you another 8 in the past. But the Quran calls those 8 one. مرة. He doesn't say, وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مِرَارًا أُخْرَى. He says, وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى. Mainly, this is something about the blessings, guys. When you start by counting one blessing, it leads you to other blessings. That's why the Quran says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you start to count, you will lose track of number. Because it's too many. But sometimes when you start with a multitude of blessings, you just get lost. You lose hope in counting. But when Allah said, you know, I've given you one blessing, you start to think, you know, start to count. That's why a secret to being grateful is counting. There is this, you know, form of worship that we don't really practice. The form of ad, counting the blessings, is in of itself a very beautiful thing. So. You're absolutely right. Faith will give us perspective. Just to see the upper hand and the big picture. Absolutely. As we get lost easily in the details. What he sees in front of him is just encountering Fir'aun. How difficult this is, how difficult this is. Allah is saying, you know, there's a bigger picture. I've looked after you. You've been brought up in his own balance. Can't you think that this was happening for a good reason?
Someone is one of those blessings. So there's a phone ringing somewhere that is just driving me crazy. Is there a phone that is vibrating?
That's true. Stop. I think it's stopped by now, isn't it?
One thing is the passive nature of Musa in the previous events. You know, you basically didn't do anything, and it's all us. It's so shocking to me, and I think wallahi, if someone like reflects on their life, the main decisions, the main turning points, and so on and so forth were nothing to do with us.
Very true. Very true.
And it's almost like we look at divine decree in different ways depending on the tense. I think in the past, you had nothing to do with it. No matter how much in the moment you feel like you're the one acting, at the end, somehow you literally had nothing to do with it. The solution comes from
Absolutely. That reminds me of this statement, this very powerful statement. Allahu ghalibun ala amri. By the end of the day, he does what he wants. He reaches his Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Was it Salma or Maryam that used the expression vessels of God, vessels of God's causes? You know, a vessel is like this. It's a bowl. I'm not a good drawer, so. And you have it here. It's an empty vessel. You're just processing. It just depends where they are. It's a fertile land or a barren one. So, definitely.
Fine, last
Yes.
one. وَلَا تَنَيَا فِي ذِكْرِي. If I understand it correctly, I wonder if it links or is synonymous to the very first verse where, or the second, اللي هي ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. The idea that if taniya means almost lose hope in my remembrance, then it's a different thing. But if it means get tired in my remembrance, then I guess it links very directly.
Sure.
That reminding the Prophet that I've done exactly the same thing with your brother. I sent him, and he said, "Kay nidhkuraka kathira," almost with that sense of determination to continue in remembrance. But then also God is also asking him, "Wala tanaya fi dhikri," as in don't get overwhelmed in my presence.
Absolutely. never give up, never get tired. Definitely, definitely. And it's not about losing hope. Yeah, it's definitely about giving, being tired or giving up on something.
But is it because of the excessive dhikr?
Of the excessive thing.
As in, like Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ لِتَشْقَى.
He was
Or
not doing.
Taha, for example.
Mm.
Is it the same here with Musa? As in, don't get overtired in my remembrance. Don't tire yourselves. in
So
my-
you say there is another possibility
Yes.
that it could be لا تنيا في ذكري, don't do much.
Don't overtire yourselves in my remembrance.
How interesting.
Relating to Taha.
That's a really, really interesting perspective. I mean, linguistically, as far as I know, taniya comes from wana, and wana is to get tired. If I say, لقد ساعدتك ولم أتوانى, I've helped you, but I have never get tired of that. And up to this moment, we use the verb atawana, yatawana, from wana. But there is, I have to check a dictionary for that.
Especially this is fi dhikri. That's the reason.
ولا تنيا في ذكري. And the thing about dhikr that is not necessarily verbal. The way I understand dhikr is mainly, as in, it's a matter of the heart. Like, how do I remember with my heart in the first place? We've reduced dhikr to just the verbal aspect of it. It's not. It's primarily actually the heart side of it. Otherwise, many Muslims would say adhkar. But do we get reminded by those adhkar? They are called adhkar for a good reason. They are reminders. If you don't get that into that state of remembrance, it doesn't do the job. So it should be taught in the heart in the first place, not the tongue. Not the tongue. Dhikr is a matter of the heart in the first place.
It's about remembering.
Of course. It's not about mentioning, it's about remembering. It is about remembering, not mentioning. Mentioning is one of its tools. Yes. But it's a means, not an end. The end is the heart.
So on baqiyat al-salahat, for example, these are usually dhikr, or is it?
All forms of worship are forms of dhikr. We pray so that we may remember Him. We give zakat because we remember Him. We fast because we remember He asked us to do so. So every single form of worship goes back to dhikr. وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. It's the upper, the higher objective of prayer. We pray so that we may remember Him. أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لَذِكْرُ. So it's beyond everything. There is something in philosophy called the meta study. As in, what is beyond this? Metaphysics. What is beyond physics? That's what the meta, worship, forms of worship we make. Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah. You haven't recited with us, have you? Did I make any mistakes? At all? Okay. Unless if you have any other thing to share before we draw this to a close. Yes.
Sheikh, how correct is it for someone as an individual to associate themselves with, say, Musa? For example, you said Musa alayhi salam, he did a mistake and he didn't intend for it to happen. And then the person who's reading, say they've also had, even 5 years ago, that they've made a mistake, and they've definitely made a mistake, this person, let's say. But it's like, they didn't intend for it to happen. Is it like really that easy to, because like Musa alayhi salam, he was chosen by Allah, you know what I mean? So it's like for us who aren't prophets, how,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Sure. The Quran says the people who follow the track of the prophets will get the same results. They might not become prophets, but they will be of that track. The Quran says, ومن يطع الله والرسول فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين. If you follow this track, you will be with them. The Quran says, ثم ننجي رسلنا والذين آمنوا. We would save the prophets as well as those who had faith. So the same thing applies, and as long as you exert efforts, the same, as much as you can, to something that shows that you are really on the same track. Not necessarily of the same depth, but if you try your best. Yeah. What else? إنني معكما أسمع وأرى. No one had picked this phrase. I am with you, listening and hearing. That's a very powerful thing. A lot of them say, I am with you. I know what's going to happen. But just to say, I am with you, minute by minute, following everything happening. That's what else could be more comforting? Musa alayhi salam. And I find Musa, and that's something that's very powerful, by the way. I find Musa's acknowledging his fear, is a very powerful thing, which is something that we don't normally do. Many a time we are afraid of certain things, but we don't acknowledge them. We don't embrace them.
Not zakat.
We do not embrace them.
It's not zakat fitr. It's not zakat.
Acknowledging the fear. Musa alayhi salam says a couple of times, when Allah says to him, just if you look at this passage, 2 times Musa says, I'm afraid. For various reasons, because I'm self-aware of myself, and I have that sort of social awareness, I know who the Amal is. When you acknowledge the fear, what happens to us? You move from being problem-oriented to becoming solution-oriented. Because you know what the problem is, I need to work on this. When you don't acknowledge the problem, you live it, you become part of it. So Musa alayhi salam is saying, I have a problem. Allah says, okay, here's I'm addressing this problem. Reminding you, I'm giving you tools. I'm giving you this, I'm giving you that. And also in the past I've been giving you. So Musa is not just stuck on the problem, he knows that Allah has solved this for me. Mainly because he said, I have this issue. Allah, of course, Allah knows, but the Quran is teaching us what happens. To embrace our own vulnerability. Whether it's something that is bound to have or something that can change, or just to know, to admit, I have this issue, I need to work on it. And Musa alayhi salam in the entire Quran is probably the most prophet who do this. In numerous places he talks about himself very comfortably. I have this, I have that. Who today would say, if you have someone, even the people who are the most obvious people, like someone who's a structural, it's so obvious, but they wouldn't say it. If someone says it in front of them, they might get upset. As Musa is saying, I have this problem. Send someone else because I have this issue. He's at peace with himself. We have reached a level where we're not really at peace with our own selves. We always have something of our own selves about which we're not happy. And I'm not talking about actions, I'm talking about personal traits, personal traits that you can't do anything about. Allah had designed me this way, this shape, this look. Embrace this. And I'm not talking about changing stuff, There are things to do with our personal traits that can be changed. Of course, we need to work on those. Anger issues, upset issues, of course, these things we need to work on. Don't go like stuff that we have been created with, you can't do anything about. Think of handicap, things like this. Be your own first lover. Don't despise yourself. Allah did not despise you when He created you. So appreciate yourself. That's a big thing. I find that very instructive, Acknowledging, that sense of acknowledgement in Moses' life. sometimes we say hundreds of things in order to avoid saying one thing. Don't we?
Yeah.
I think we've seen this a lot in our lives. Yeah.
But Sheikh, the situation is so scary.
Which situation?
Musa's situation.
Sure.
The ask is so big. He's being asked to go as someone who's considered an outcast.
Yeah, sure.
To go back to the top leader of the top nation on earth.
Absolutely.
And go and say, you're wrong. Your religion is wrong.
Yeah.
You have to change this. And you have to worship.
Sure.
It's
And Musa did. He ended up doing.
and he was given all the subhanallah,
Yeah.
even in this situation, you imagine you would never be able to do this, but you get the tools to do
Absolutely.
it. You're always given the tools for whatever situation.
Very true. I find his own acknowledgement playing a key role in that.
True.
Like I know my problems, what they are, and Allah is telling me, here I'm addressing this. And Musa goes and he becomes, and Walid said this a couple of weeks ago, when we had a light conversation on what defines fear. And he said fear, of course, is not about not having fears as such, but courage is about overcoming fear despite having it. This is so true. This is it. Musa, in the midst of the encounter with Fir'aun, despite all those forms of support, he says, فَأَوْجَسَ فِي نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةً مُوسَى. Internally, Musa was afraid. قُلْنَا لَا تَخَفْ. We said to him, in the midst of it, don't be afraid. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْأَعْلَى. You have the upper hand. That's a big thing. And the conversation goes like that. At a certain, when always the fight between al-haqq wal batil, falsehood and truthfulness is like this. Falsehood is always up in the beginning, and the truth would be, the bottom one. Start to challenge until they reach a point where they are fighting literally nose to nose. Then the truth would come up, and falsehood would go down. That's how it normally goes. Just across the board, in our lives, the same thing. We see the final encounter between Musa and Fir'aun. I quoted this before. Fir'aun says to Musa, وَإِنِّي لَأَظُنُّكَ يَا مُوسَى مَسْحُورًا. I think you are bewitched yourself. Musa does not regret his action. I think you are the one going to be damned, going to be destroyed. I lost hope. The power of just understanding yourself. That sort of self-awareness. Really understand yourself, your capacities, your weaknesses, and how do we work on them. And also social awareness. Musa is very socially aware as well. He's not stupid, he knows this, how difficult this is. And as you said, this is, you come into the Egyptian civilization back then was literally the civilization. The Quran identifies as al-ard. جَعَلْنِي عَلَى خَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ. As in, the Egyptian civilization back then was one of the earliest, if not the earliest civilization on earth. And he says, you go to that man, claiming to be a Lord, claiming to be God, sorry, that's a big thing. So he knows this is not easy. Being self-aware, being socially aware, very important for a believer to have. We have people who lack both. They don't know even themselves, let alone knowing the situation, let alone knowing the context. You might have someone who knows himself, but he doesn't know the context. Someone who knows the context, he doesn't know himself. So that's how Allah makes leaders. Remember last time we said, if you want to look at how Allah forms a thinker, look at Ibrahim. If you want to see how Allah forms a leader, look at Musa. Last week we looked at وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى. How should I work with whatever is in my hand? What is in my hand now? We've had a lengthy conversation on that last week. Today, one of the key leadership skills we may draw from Musa alayhi salam is, how do I become self-aware? How does this sort of self-awareness, but also social awareness? Musa knows his own limitations. He knows also his context. That's what, for us, we need to learn those skills, let alone the ones that are more personal, like soft skills. And I hope someone lists all those stuff that we talked about today. The soft skills that we see to do with leadership skills. So many leadership skills can come out of this conversation, beginning from the last two weeks' conversations. A lot can come out of this. How do we create a leader? How do we create a prophetic example of a leader? We have so many leaders today who are unprophetic. We need a prophetic leadership. Literally, that's what we need. Paradigms, prophetic paradigms of leadership. People are like Musa alayhi salam, who work within the context, who understand what is happening, who يعملون ما بين يديهم وتلك بيمينك يا موسى, understand the skills that they have really made at hand. Socially aware, personally aware of their own capacities and handicaps. They know, they try to understand as much as they can for their own context. Asking for what they don't have, realizing the bigger picture. That's leadership. That is pure leadership, pure prophetic leadership. And that is the Islamic embodiment of what a leader should be. Leadership, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu used to say, لست بالخب وليس الخب يخدعني. I am not someone who's cunning, and I don't make tricks, I don't deceive people. But I'm intelligent enough not to be deceived by others. Right? That's leadership. How do I balance those qualities and those traits? You're not meant to be evil. You're not meant to be, makir or cunning. At the very same time, you're meant to be wise, understanding, perceptive. Knowing what is happening in front of me, reading between the lines. Having those, somehow conflicting skills is not an easy thing. And that's why not everyone is a leader, definitely. It takes smelting. It takes smelting. Like Musa alayhi salam. وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. That's why, simply, today we have trends, people who become so famous in the blink of an eye. Right? Would you identify them, we call them influencers. How many of those influencers would you identify as real leaders? Why did we pick the word influencers?
Bad influence. Bad influence.
Because the influence they don't lead as such. Mainly because they didn't go through this. وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. Musa was smelted, literally. Did these people get smelted? No. They did not. Was it like an overnight? It was more an overnight thing, like today, they have created a post on Facebook, I don't know, whatever. Viral. That's what influence is about. And today, Wallahi, look at the whole world. Who leads the world? Are we being led by leaders or by influencers? Mainly by influencers. Even people who claim to be leaders, are they acting with the leadership sense? No. That's why the prophetic example of leadership is so vital, is so important. Hope inshallah will come up at the point when Musa has, as I said, I really meant it when I said, if you are after learning about leadership skills, look at Musa alayhi salam in the Quran. You will find so many things, gender relations, politics, economics, so many things. Because Musa was dealing with Fir'aun, but he also dealt with Haman, tycoon, economics. Sorry, the Qarun, business, genius financially. But he also has Haman. Think of the man who has you have Fir'aun, who is the figure of the country or the civilization, but you also have Haman, the one who does things on earth. We think of prime ministers today, hands-on. How did Musa deal with every single one of them? What is this? Fir'aun on his own is more than enough to deal with. And the Quran speaks of this. It says, وَقَارُونَ وَفِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مُوسَى بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. Musa came to them all. اسْتَكْبَرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا كَانُوا سَابِقِينَ فَكُلًّا أَخَذْنَا بِذَنبِهِ. Every one of them received what they deserved. Musa must have been a giant to deal with all this. And that's why he went through فَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. That is leadership. And leadership does take years. That's why the Quran identifies Musa as a leader. So, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. Musa reached this level. Stawa, when we say stawa in Arabic, we mean someone who's his peak. Someone's peak is 40. Someone speaks, normally it's taken as when you are 40 years of age, you've reached. As in you've seen much in your life that highlights you, what my weaknesses are, what my strengths are, what the context is. I'm aware of my own capacities, my own limitations. I know the context of the political context, the economical context, and this and that. Allah says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مُوسَى وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. What happens before that? You might have strength, specific strength. And the thing is, the first thing that comes when we think of strength, we think of physical strength. The first thing that really matures in us, probably, like the age of 20, 25, 30, really at your, the vast majority of people would say 30. That age when you are, physically at your peak, right? But mentally, it happens most of the time later, wiser, more mature. You don't act haphazardly. You know what you're saying. You spend your time in the wisest way. You know what awaits ahead of me in terms of time is way less than what I have behind my back. So I need to be wise with my time. I need to be wise with my words. I need to be wise with my relationships. You don't get this easy. You get this as you advance in age. Right? That's why Musa is a big leader. So in terms of leadership, Musa is the man to go to. If you are after a prophetic paradigm of leadership. We have cases where younger examples did lead. Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam. That's why the Quran says of Yusuf, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ. The Quran doesn't say وَاسْتَوَى. He says he, became old enough to lead, but he did not reach 40. That's why it doesn't say Mustafa. He did not mature in terms of age. But he was wise enough to be put in that position. What did Yusuf have? I don't know if you covered this when we covered Surah Yusuf in the past. I don't know if you looked at leadership skills in Yusuf examples. Maybe we should. I don't know if we had this conversation. In the same way we looked at Musa alayhi salam. We didn't. We should. We should. We focused on Ihsan, indeed. Perhaps, inshallah, we should probably dedicate a discussion.
You spoke a little bit about certain things, like, for example, how he put himself forward to the role, saying, can I take this role over?
Absolutely. And even when we discussed this somehow fleetingly because we were
CVs
somehow, exactly, CVs and looking for jobs there. So we definitely should. Surah Yusuf is a gem of wisdom on this. We have two great examples of prophetic leadership, Musa alayhi salam, Yusuf alayhi salam, as examples of, and we have Prophet Muhammad, guys, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Someone who changed the Arab Peninsula upside down in 23 years. What is this? What is this? Unbelievable capacities. And these people were not normal. They went through a lot. Again, they were smelted. It's 2 hours by now. You can't get enough of this passage. So Surah is full of wisdom. So we'll continue next week. Thank you so much for your great contributions. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت